In this video, we're going to talk about 11 cars that people tend to forget. Now, if you're a car guy, then you probably recall most of these models. But as far as the general population, most people completely forgot about these cars. We're not going to have a long intro. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, so first up on our list is the Volvo 780 Bertone. So this was a stylish coupe that was limited production and it offered the best of both worlds. Italian design, and it had Volvo's safety and practicality. All of these 780s were built at the Bertone factory in Italy. The 780 was based on Volvo's 700 series sedans and wagons, but every single body panel was unique to this two-door coupe. On the outside, the 780 has style and class, but on the inside, it had a fancy interior. It has special wood trim and two-tone leather seats. This car had a relatively short run beginning for the 1986 model year, with production wrapping up in 1990. In total, Volvo produced 8,518 780s, and the company did not offer another coupe until the more modern C70 arrived for the 1996 model year. Okay, so forget about this thing. The Avenger we're talking about is the OG sports coupe from the 90s. Dodge sold these alongside the mechanically similar Chrysler Sebring between 1995 and 2000. So although this car had typical Dodge styling, it was actually based on a stretched version of the Mitsubishi Eclipse. The beautiful, sleek and sporty design, as well as the 2-liter 4-banger engine were all Dodge. But the optional 2.5-liter V6 and interior design were all Mitsubishi. Later on, the Stratus Coupe ended up taking its place, but this OG Avenger just felt so much more special and unique. Nowadays, whenever someone mentions Dodge Avenger, the sedan is the first thing that comes to mind. Unless you're a car guy or perhaps owned one at some point, most people have forgotten about this stylish coupe of the 90s. The two-door Dodge Shadow and Plymouth Sundance were built on Chrysler's P-body platform, just like their 4-door variants. But more serious drivers would go for the Shelby CSX of 1987 to 1989. This was based on the Dodge Shadow with a turbocharged 2.2-liter 4-cylinder and cranked out 175 ponies and could go from 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds. These two doors were replaced by the original Dodge and Plymouth Neon Coupe, which also got discontinued once the second generation Neon arrived for 2000. As a sedan, no one forgot about the Mitsubishi Eclipse, especially the second generation. This car was beautiful and easily one of the most loved sports coupes of the 90s. The Eclipse GSX was small, turbocharged, with all-wheel drive, and was on the prowl for unsuspecting Mustangs all throughout the 90s. But there are two more cars that were almost the same as the Eclipse that most people forgotten about. And those cars are the Eagle Talon and Plymouth Laser. These cars were just as sporty and just as capable as the Eclipse, especially since both of them could be equipped with the same stuff as the GSX. These three cars represented Diamond Star Motors, the joint venture between Chrysler and Mitsubishi. The only difference between them were a few cosmetic changes, trim, and badging. Now, the Eclipse and Lasers were cool. The Laser went away after 1994, but the Talon stuck around. And I always liked the Talon with its awesome badges, its aggressive front end, and especially that two-tone paint job. Plus, it was just way more uncommon than the Eclipse. Now, unless you're a car guy, the general population has mostly forgotten about this car. This 2-passenger EXP coupe went on sale for the 1982 model year, being based on the 80s Ford Escort hatchback. The styling was definitely unique. It had these strange frog eyes up front, but it was overweight and underpowered. Ford offered an optional close ratio transmission and a high output version. In 1982, the EXP wheezed out just 70 horsepower, and this so-called high output engine was only good for a wimpy 80 horsepower. In 1984, they decided to offer the 120 horsepower EXP Turbo Coupe. There was a new second generation that got rid of the frog eyes of the original EXP. So the old frog eyes were gone and this new car had the nice composite headlights instead. But still, there just wasn't a whole lot of interested buyers. People shopping in this segment were more interested in the Honda CRX. Ford's little coupe was finally discontinued after 1988. While most car enthusiasts saw the 1974 to 1978 Mustang II as a miserable excuse for a pony car, it still actually sold quite well. But there was a variant that most people don't talk about anymore. This so-called King Cobra was a limited edition upgrade and performance package that was only around for just 1 year, and that was 1978. This was the first Mustang to feature the 5.0 badges. One of the standout features of this car was the giant King Cobra sticker on the hood. This was kinda like the famous screaming chicken you will see on the hood of a Trans Am. Under the hood was a 302 V8, but unfortunately, that engine only wheezed out about 130 horsepower, and the car itself could go from 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds. Well, at least the new 1979 Fox body Mustang showed up later on that year. People recall the beautiful Thunderbird of the 1970s, and many even recall the latest T-Bird. And while I still see plenty of 90s V8 powered Thunderbirds on the road every now and then, the Thunderbird SC variant is the one that slipped from the memory of most people. The Thunderbird SC came with a 210 horsepower supercharged 3.8 liter V6, and later on that 210 horsepower was increased to 230. It even rode on an independent suspension with electronically adjustable shocks. This car was definitely one of the final big rear-wheel drive personal coupes. Some people might remember the Maserati Biturbo coupe. The Biturbo was an executive grand tour with 2 doors and 4 seats, and they made this car from 1981 to 1994. The Biturbo had a 2-liter V6 that, of course, was twin turbocharged. The Shamal shared a lot of similar parts from the Biturbo. Its engine was almost identical to the Biturbo, except it added 2 extra cylinders. This car served as Maserati's flagship model, powered by a 3.2-liter twin-turbo V8. With a shorter wheelbase than the Biturbo, this car had an aggressive design with a little bit of quirkiness, like those weird black-colored B-pillars that were actually an integrated roll bar. And another quirky feature was the body kit that included a spoiler at the base of the windshield. Maserati only produced less than 400 of these, but it was reported that none of them made it to the North American car market. If this Mercury LN7 looks familiar, that's because it's virtually the same car as the Ford EXP. However, this Mercury version is even more rare than the EXP. Mercury had developed a bad habit of selling rebadged Ford models, and this was no exception. Other than the bubble-back hatchback rear, slightly altered grille, and the odd but stylish wheels, there really wasn't much difference between it and the Ford version. It still had the weird frog eyes, just like the EXP, and the most powerful LN7 only made a puny 80 horsepower. They say this car was just an experiment by Mercury, but either way, it sold poorly. So it's safe to say that most people forgot about this car, and it doesn't help that Mercury discontinued it after only 2 years on the market. Whenever someone mentions Nissan Altima, automatically they think about this one or this one. This one, however, is beginning to fade away from the memory of most people. When it came out for the 2002 model year, the 3rd generation Nissan Altima had a sporty image with a powerful V6 and revolutionary styling. Nissan decided to produce a coupe for the new 4th generation that arrived for 2007. As far as appearance, this new coupe was quite sporty, and it shared its underpinnings with the 4-door sedan. You could get a 2.5-liter 4-banger as the base engine, and the more powerful 3.5-liter V6 as an upgrade. You could get both engines with a 6-speed stick shift, and a limited slip differential was an available option. This gave the Altima Coupe some legitimate performance credentials. This was the only time you could get an Altima Coupe, and when the 5th generation came out for 2013, it went back to only being a sedan. Don't you just love how in the 90s we had so many choices of cool cars? To replace the Pulsar NX, Nissan decided to come out with this coupe in 1990. To say the least, the NX2000's looks were quite polarizing at the time, but under the skin, this was an outstanding performance car, and the optional T-tops were a great bonus too. This was virtually an upgraded Sentra SCR, only with different and arguably more interesting bodywork. This was during a time when you could walk into a Nissan dealership, and if you didn't have the extra cash for a 300ZX or a 240SX, you could get one of these instead. Unless you're a car guy, the NX2000 is mostly forgotten today, but it was a great, relatively inexpensive sport compact back in the day. Alright, so that does it for this list. If there is a car you did not see, it might just appear in an upcoming video. But let me know what cars you think people forgot about and you no longer see on the road. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.